Well, welcome to the INFOWARS Nightly News. It's Wednesday, November 23rd, 2016. I'm your host, Margaret Howell. Here's what's coming up tonight.
Tonight, after a series of nationwide ambush attacks of police officers, anti-Trump communist protesters hit the streets of Austin, Texas, and they are calling for more violence and the murders of more cops. Then, Hampshire College in Massachusetts got so triggered by the election of Donald Trump that they decided to lower the American flag at half-staff. And when patriotic Americans complained about it, they simply removed the flag from the school entirely. Plus, look who's become the most influential media outlet in America. That's right, INFOWARS, making freedom go viral. All that plus much more up next, the INFOWARS Nightly News.
Well, I'm Margaret Howell for INFOWARS.com. We have a ton of news to get through. Let's just jump right in. We're going to start with Iran. This coming out of the news cycle today. I found this on Yahoo News. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei said today in Tehran that he's going to retaliate in the event that sanctions are approved through our U.S. Congress. Now, this is coming on the heels of Barack Obama leaving office. And the second that Trump is elected, this is so funny, folks. I nearly, when I read this today, I'm like, yes, of course, right on. Finally, they're taking a step against Obama's measures. Of course, we know that our president lifted the sanctions against Iran, giving them free rein, stimulating their economy. Meanwhile, we have no check on the fact that they're possibly still building nuclear weapons. Now, I want to take you to what the U.S. House of Representatives did this week. They reauthorized the Iran Sanctions Act, or ISA, for 10 years. That's what we're looking at. Now, this Iranian measure, it would expire at the end of 2016. Had they not renewed it, it is pushing its way through the House now onto the Senate. And Iran and world powers, they concluded that this nuclear agreement, it's known as the JCPOA, last year, it was going to impose curbs on their nuclear program. And in return, all is well with their economy. Well, of course, we know that the White House, they believe this legislation, it's going to violate the nuclear pact that Obama would ultimately veto. Now, we know that Trump is less than 60 days away from assuming office. It cannot come soon enough, frankly, folks. And the fact that our Congress, our lawmakers, they're trying to ram this bill through to make sure that they can reimpose these sanctions. It looks like they're finally stepping up and doing their job. But Iran did not miss the opportunity to say, you know what, we're going to retaliate, whatever that means. I guess we're going to have to wait and see. We know what they did to U.S. hostages in 1979 because they didn't get their way. I can only guess what retaliate means. But it looks like our Congress is finally doing their job and trying to reimpose those sanctions. Now, while Iran is chanting death to America on their streets, unfortunately, we have a similar situation here in the United States. We have anti-Trump protesters that are chanting for more cop killings after this spate of nationwide murders of police officers. Of course, we covered this article. Paul Joseph Watson, one of our own, put this up. It's on our website. These anti-Trump communist protesters, they were actually here in the city of Austin, and they were chanting, and I cannot believe that they were doing this in plain sight as police officers were in their cars nearby. This is what they were chanting, with some of them dressed in hammer and sickle face masks like communists. The agitators, they shouted FUCK police as they marched down the sidewalk, while others stuck up their middle fingers while cops were in nearby vehicles. What's better than one dead cop? Two dead cops, they could be heard shouting. And you know what? You'd think that this would be an arrestable offense, threatening the lives of police officers in front of them while your middle finger's up, basically saying that we're going to kill you. We want you all to die. We've had a spate of cop murders in this country, one alarmingly close to Austin and San Antonio. And these ambush-style attacks is what we're talking about against our law enforcement. And the Black Lives Matter activist that has inspired the entire movement, we know was a convicted cop killer herself. which doesn't seem to have any impact on our current presidential administration, who, in fact, wants Black Lives Matter activists to come to the table and actually come into the White House and talk about how we can all come together and support the movement, despite them chanting that cops should die in our country. Now, Trump, I mentioned this earlier, this murdered San Antonio police officer, this man on Sunday, His name was Benjamin Marconi. He was a detective in San Antonio. He was actually writing a ticket to somebody, and he was shot and killed in the head, a random cop shooting. And where was our president? No word on Barack Obama reaching out to his family. The good news is, though, President-elect Donald Trump reportedly phoned his family, Officer Marconi's family. And Dane Gregory Marconi, who was spokesperson for the family, he wrote this on Facebook. It was not available for public viewing, but the San Antonio Express News picked it up. Donald Trump Jr., of course, retweeting it. This is what he had to say. He said, just got off the phone with the future President Trump. He sends his condolences to our family. And, you know what? That's what a president should be doing, standing behind our fallen officers and their families and offering condolences for such a heinous, despicable crime, which is advocated by Black Lives Matter. Now, that's going on in the streets. And meanwhile, on our college campuses, places like this Hampshire College in Amherst, Massachusetts, they're flying their flags at half-mast. Half-staffed, excuse me, in the wake of the presidential election. I kid you not. And the spokesperson for the school, they actually had the audacity to say that it was going to provoke meaningful and respectful dialogue on the campus because they're flying their flags half-staffed. I can't make this up, folks. It's actual news. The fact that we have a President Trump means that it's a time of grief and mourning for this ridiculous outfit. You know, I shudder to think what kids are paying in tuition to go to that school where they're mourning the election of a president. That's going on. Now, we understand here at INFOWARS the role that the mainstream media played in trying to take down Donald Trump very unsuccessfully with their lies. They call us fake news, but in fact, they're the real fake news spouting these lies. We try to give you the real truth in real time as we find it. We work really hard. Our staff does this on the ground each and every day. And Donald Trump, I love this story coming out of the Wall Street Journal. He actually criticized, he hauled all of the TV network executives in a room. Reportedly, CNN President Jeff Zucker, Fox News co-president Jack Abernathy and Bill Shine, ABC News President James Goldstein, CBS News Vice President Chris Isham, along with on-air bigwigs like Lester Holt. Shame on you, Mr. Holt, by the way. CBS's Charlie Rose, ABC's George Stephanopoulos, and CNN's Wolf Blitzer. And he gave them a little talking to about their lies, about the hoodwinking that's gone on their shows, frankly. And we put this article up on INFOWARS.com where it's entitled, Trump Tells TV Executives to Their Face, I hate you, you liars. Alex Jones breaks it down. Take a listen.
President-elect slams smug media in face-to-face at Trump Tower. We're in a room of liars, the deceitful, dishonest media who got it all wrong. Supposed to be an off-the-record meeting, but the Trump folks have confirmed this went on. He told them, look, I hate you. You hate me. Let's just be honest. You work for corporate execs that are fools. You've bankrupted yourselves. You have no credibility. And I just want to declare that you're scum. That's exactly what I'd tell them. The New York Times and stuff want to talk to me. I go, are you talking to me as a prop? To pretend we're doing an interview? And I loved watching so-called journalists like Stephanopoulos and people scurrying out of there. And Wolf Blitzer looked like he'd been flogged with a cat o' nine tails when he left. Donald Trump's media summit was an effing firing squad. He told Jeff Zucker, quote, I hate your network. Everyone at CNN is a liar, and you should be ashamed. I'm sorry, this is just too good. Oh, it's too good. Trump knows exactly what to do. We must bankrupt these organizations. They're already financed by kingpins and drug dealers and every other criminal organization you can imagine. They want to bring the country down. You're going down. Whatever little sponsorship you've got left, everybody has to contact their sponsors and say, I will never use your product if I see your ad on there one more time. You want to bring down America? We're going to get in your face. We're going to lean on you and see how you like it, you little bullies. You've bullied this country around a little too long.
Well, you talk about the fake corporate media scrambling to keep their heads on after that meeting. You know, it wasn't televised. I can only imagine how that went. And they've done a blatant attempt to silence anybody that criticizes them, calling us fake. You know, Dr. Paul in the Liberty Report, he did this amazing outline of the real fake news. And our own Alex Jones, he breaks that down for you in real time. Take a listen.
But for you to say that you're comfortable with fake news getting posted, that's okay, when you know that
define fake for
what
me.
This is about, well, you can't define fake.
Yes,
you can. What this is about is left-leaning mainstream media blaming conservative media for losing the election, losing credibility, and losing readers. Their definition of fake news is anything that doesn't align with their leftist agenda.
Freedom of speech is staring down the barrel of a gun loaded by a cancer of global interests that have laid claim to the last remaining fragments of the First Amendment of the United States of America. RT reports former Congressman Ron Paul revealed a list of fake news journalists he claims are responsible for bogus wars and lies about Hillary Clinton's chances of winning the election. Journalists from CNN, the New York Times, and The Guardian are included. According to the report on his website, Ron Paul Liberty Report, this list contains the culprits who told us that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction and lied us into multiple bogus wars. Paul claims the list is sourced and holds a lot more water than a list previously released by Melissa Zimdars, who is described by Zero Hedge as an ultra-liberal assistant professor of communications at Merrimack College. Zimdars' list in itself should be considered fake. A list containing actual fake news sites alongside true news-gathering alternative view sites that utilize a system of dissecting the mainstream narrative and its long history of fake reporting. Fake reporting is nothing new. Just ask Brian Williams.
After a ground fire incident in the desert during the Iraq War invasion, I made a mistake in recalling the events of 12 years ago. It did not take long to hear from some brave men and women in the air crews who were also in that desert. I want to apologize. I said I was traveling in an aircraft that was hit by RPG fire. I was instead in a following aircraft.
With the loss of the globalist foothold and the quiet death of the Smith-Munn Act in 2013, propaganda is being waged on all fronts. George Orwell said, "Threats to freedom of speech, writing, and action, though often trivial in isolation, are cumulative in their effect and, unless checked, lead to a general disrespect for the rights of the citizen."
Is the Constitution a living document, open to interpretation, or is it something that must be read strictly and adhered to regardless of the day?
You know, Scott, that is the question that is asked constantly of judges. And so to talk about strict interpretation or living constitution, those are not words I use. And they're not words that I think have much meaning.
The very concept of objective truth is fading out of the world. Lies will pass into history. George Orwell.
You know, when we first got in there, started looking around and didn't find anything, you get that kind of sinking feeling that, uh-oh. And then time went on, and then we got tips, you know, I'll never forget the tip that there was crates buried, you know, hidden in the Euphrates River. They found, maybe these are them, and they've sent frogmen, and there was nothing there.
In our age, there is no such thing as keeping out of politics. All issues are political issues, and politics itself is a mass of lies, evasions, folly, hatred, and schizophrenia. George Orwell.
You have to represent all of the people, and the people have to believe that. You have to have the rule of law that applies to everyone, not just to some of the people.
For those of you who are concerned about my using personal email, I understand, and I am sure they will reach the same conclusion they did when they looked at my emails for the last year. There is no case here.
Now, speaking of fake news, because they're not happy that they were toppled and exposed and the real media got out, thanks in part to you on social media retweeting us. Facebook has been a critical component of getting out real news. And Zuckerberg, he's reportedly taken notice. He's done an all-out assault on fake news, what he's calling fake news, which is actually true news. And Facebook, they're saying that they're creating, this was in the New York Times, on the cover yesterday by Mike Isaac, Facebook said to create censorship tool to get back into China. So it looks like Zuckerberg, the social network, they've been quietly developing the software to suppress posts and appearing in people's news feeds in specific geographic areas, like here in the U.S., with anything they don't agree with. This according to 3 current and former Facebook employees who wanted to remain anonymous, not surprising there, because the tool is, quote, confidential. Apparently, they're wanting to break into the Chinese market. 1.4 billion people. They, can't miss an opportunity to make a little money. Who cares about censorship, right? I mean, it's all in, it's what they do anyway, frankly. I want to take you to this. The suppression software has been contentious within Facebook, which is separately grappling with what should or should not be shown to its users after the American presidential election's unexpected outcome spurred questions over fake news on the social network. They are not happy at all that they could not accurately suppress in real time what was being said on social media, exposing the Clinton lies, exposing the Clinton camp, that machine of corruption. You guys did a heck of a job getting on social media. We were at the tip of the spear with this, and we really tried to pierce through pretty successfully, I might add, INFOWARS and Breitbart in particular, and Facebook is not too happy about it. It looks like they're partnering with a Chinese company to monitor popular news stories. That's a shocker right there. Now, as they're scrambling to squelch fake news, the Democratic National Committee, of course, is in shambles given what happened with Donna Brazile. What a nightmare there. It looks like she was fired from CNN as well. And she had to step down because it turns out she wasn't doing too many ethical things over there. They're looking for a new leader right now. Also on the cover of the New York Times, I can't pass up a good story here. Keith Ellison is being considered for the top job, and he's not without controversy. Of course, he is a Muslim. He's in Congress representing Minnesota. He defended Louis Farrakhan in the 90s, saying that he was not an anti-Semite, trying to position himself to represent his congressional delegation as a moderate. We, of course, know that Ellison is not a moderate. Very poor choice here. But hey, they got to throw up somebody.
Wow, dude, I mean, I'm communist, man. Yeah.
So let's talk about communism. This year it's been given a second win due to Bernie Sanders and the SJW crowd, who see it as a great system and one that we should implement in our own country. Everyone gets what they want, everyone receives what they want, and no one has to work that hard. Except that's exactly wrong, and I'm gonna tell you why. In America, in any capitalist society, you and your fellow citizens create the environment and create the market and create supply and demand, which therefore creates an environment of competition and therefore encourages growth. However, in communism, the government does this very same action for you, therefore eliminating the need for your own interaction and needs and purposes. This means the government can basically walk all over you for the good of the group. What communism does is that it enslaves the individual for the betterment of the collective. The collective. But who is the collective, you may ask? This is the government. You don't have a say. In fact, you are not the real collective. In all these communist societies, Kim Jong-un, Stalin, Lenin, Mao, they were the collective. These individuals who said that they represented you and claimed that they were the group of you, that whole big government that was formed, was not for you, but it was for their own personal interests. And that's why no communist government has ever succeeded in any way, shape, or form other than to make weapons technology. There has not been one medical advancement in a communist country. There has not been one invention in a communist country that we all use and love today in our free world. We don't do it. It's because it's all crap. The government in those countries makes people fear and dumbs them down so that they can enforce their own tirade of unreasonable actions.
Why are you so worried about a zygote? And ultimately, your sympathies do not lie with black people. They lie with your racist, white, middle-class agenda, and that's where it will always lie, and you will be destroyed holding that line.
Okay, I adopted 2 children.
Oh, good for you, white savior. Aren't you so proud?
They're not white.
Exactly, he's not white. Exactly, you're a white savior. You think that it is the white man's duty to fix everybody's problems, right? Because you adopt. How many did I adopt? I kill my kids. How many did I adopt? I kill my kids.
I kill my kids.
Communism is also one of the most violent and horrific governmental systems ever to be enacted. Communism has killed more than fires, alcohol abuse, and the Vietnam War in the 20th century. That's just ridiculous. Why can we even support a version of something like that if it does something so horrible and kills so many? These governments have steamrolled millions of people in order to benefit a few. You know, that's what they say capitalism does. They say it benefits only those at the top. If you look at communism, that's just ridiculous.
I don't wear deodorant. I love Satan.
Say that again. Who do you love? Oh my God.
I love Satan, so you.
Babies, I pay for that.
You know something?
I pay all my money for that. I get free abortions on demand without apology. Yeah, I still pay to kill babies, though.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
How do you get your abortions paid for?
I pay for them.
I thought you said
How many
free.
do you pay for?
Upwards of 50.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow, you must make
I
a
raise
lot.
money from the community for it.
Oh, you don't use your money? You multiply your efforts, huh?
So, you may ask, I was told that communism really cared about the people. It was all about their survival. As I've just pointed out to you, that's absolutely false. The only true goal that communism has is making the few, the government officials, more powerful and giving them all the rights and all the say. In 1989, in Tiananmen Square, the Chinese government rolled out a force of tanks to silence a few pro-democracy voices who were crying out for change. They killed them all, or most of them, and they sent a clear message to the rest of the world that communistic governments do not accept dissent. They do not accept voices of change. They do not accept people saying, hey, maybe this is wrong, maybe this is incorrect. Only thing that they will accept is complete and blind obedience. And that is why I think the Chinese, the Russian, the North Korean, all the communist governments in the whole entire world, this is the worst governmental system ever implemented in the history of the earth.
Let me ask you a question. What do you think about Venezuela?
I think you're a boy and you don't know what communism even means.
So why do you think communism is going to be a good solution for the United States?
It's a good solution for the world. It's the only solution.
Really?
But oh no, the lefties and the special snowflakes, they cry out,
communism, it's for equality. They love all. They let all in. Everyone matters.
It's not true. Communists have famously executed the mentally handicapped and gays. And Stalin tried to kill the artists and the educated because he thought they weren't valuable enough. I mean, come on, it's simple. It's a horrible governmental system. Why would anyone follow this or even approve? Communism is the worst, outdated, disproven, horrible system of government ever implemented on the planet. So while you're watching the news and seeing all the leftist Bernie supporters crying out against Trump, saying he's racist, he's sexist, he doesn't like the gays. I mean, come on, you're communists.
Wow, dude, I mean, communist, man.
Yeah.
I've tried to reintroduce the term inside job to the nomenclature, to the language of the West. False flag, self-inflicted wound, frame-up. Everybody knows there's frame-ups in crime. Governments sometimes frame other governments. Sometimes husbands plant things on their wives or vice versa. Sometimes employees plant things on their bosses or bosses plant things on their employees. Sometimes corrupt police have been caught framing people as well. But mainstream media says that doesn't exist. Frame-ups aren't happening. And more, it'll be a tiny blurb in the back of the newspaper or at the end of a TV newscast that there have been staged events where somebody burns a cross in their yard or somebody puts KKK letters on their doorstep or individuals have swastikas put on their dorms or a lacrosse player is raped by 15 white men because she's black. And I can't really think of cases where it doesn't come out that it's been staged. There have also been a lot of cases where white women will cut things into their faces and claim that black people did it, and vice versa. There seems to be a fetish with this. There are a lot of cases of firefighters who, on average, are great people, burning down buildings and calling the fire department themselves. The false flag, the self-inflicted wound, the stage event is admitted and is a fact in criminology and is one of the most common crimes out there. Now, that said, mainstream media, when they have these events, will not even say, hey, most of these have been staged. Is this one staged? And there's several examples in the news today. NBC News has been forced to report hateful Trump notes allegedly aimed at student were fabricated, university says, by the student themselves to garner attention. Here's the Washington Post. D.C. restaurant apologizes after hosting alt-right dinner with Sieg Heil salute. Now, several frame-ups are happening here. Number one, there's a video clip of a well-known internet personality known for her antics going to the event and heiling Hitler, with two men caught on video admitting that they were Jewish coming to see the event.
But are you with the NPI? We're Jews. We're just going to see what it's like. And this is a yes or no question. We are Jews. I'm not kidding. We're Jews, and we're going to see what it's like.
Then the media claims it's an alt-right event. That's a term coined by Hillary Clinton just 5 months ago, as if she's God. Anybody that disagrees with her is alt-right. Even though a lot of people that disagree with her are liberals. So this event probably did have some white nationalists, some racists at it. We've done research. It was the Jews there heiling Hitler for the overall news story. But still, regardless, what is the media calling some perhaps possibly racist event alt-right? They call Breitbart and INFOWARS and anybody that disagrees with Hillary alt-right. Then they label alt-right as racist. That's how they're using labeling to control people. In their lust to demonize Trump, they've been caught putting out fake tweets admitting he ripped people off with his university.
A warning to viewers, the following images are disturbing. This all began after WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange released hundreds of thousands of secret documents detailing a backstabbing Clinton Foundation, but it now appears the real truth Assange was leading us to was hidden between the blurred lines of Hillary Clinton's campaign manager John Podesta's released emails. Fast forward past John Podesta's brother Tony's casual email exchange with thelemic spirit cooking adherent Marina Abramovic. The Rosetta Stone was needed next, a verification that high-level Washington, D.C. predatory pedophiles were using a code to communicate child sex trafficking as casually as ordering a pizza. An FBI unclassified document from WikiLeaks revealed symbols and logos used by pedophiles to identify sexual preferences, to include those who sexually abuse children, as well as those who produce, distribute, and trade child pornography, are using various types of identification logos or symbols to recognize one another and distinguish their sexual preferences. Investigators should also be attentive to pedophilia symbols advertised on websites. During examinations of computer files, investigators should be conscious of subjects who try to conceal child pornography by labeling them with symbols instead of typical suggestive explicit names. Thus, the interest in code words. Now, clues. The menu from Comet Ping Pong. Notice the symbol of the ping pong paddles and its clever resemblance to the FBI document's symbol for child love. All right, hang on, New York Times. Before you declare this fake news from your ivory tower, now look at the symbol for Besta Pizza, just 2 doors down from Comet Ping Pong Pizza, boldly using the symbol for boy lover as was recorded on the unclassified FBI document. The evidence begins to reveal that Besta Pizza and Comet Ping Pong Pizza may be competing for the lucrative Washington, D.C. pedophile market right out in the open. Comet Ping Pong owner James Alefantis needs to explain himself, and so he did. via the Hillary Clinton colluding New York Times. But so many questions remain unanswered. Why was this said by the band Heavy Breathing performing in Comet Ping Pong?
He likes the world sounds. Tamales.
And little boys.
And children. I think I was his manager.
No.
We all have preferences.
Why is the artwork adorning Comet Ping Pong's walls at the very least so insanely creepy, especially for a family restaurant? Why is Alefantis so close to Tony Podesta as revealed in the WikiLeaks emails? And why does Mr. Podesta collect questionable artwork specializing in grotesque eroticism and pedophilic images, not to mention Podesta's dabbling in what appears to be cannibalistic rituals while continuing his old friendship with convicted pedophile Dennis Hastert? Why is this man wearing an I Love Children shirt in this situation? Why did you write #murder next to this incredibly creepy photo you posted? Why do you find it amusing that this baby is for sale? Why do you associate with this artist? Why is any of this okay? And if these code words are eventually proven to be just another method of communication, then why did the Podesta emails mention the code word pasta for either little boy or sex 78 times? Code word cheese for little girl 85 times. And what does Podesta's friend Herb mean by this statement from a Podesta email? P.S. Do you think I'll do better playing dominoes on cheese than on pasta? According to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and the FBI, 460,699 children went missing in 2015 that we know of. Mr. Alefantis, this isn't a witch hunt, and it isn't an attack from fake news that your boyfriend David Brock, founder of Media Matters, would have us all ignore. Either you are the unlucky victim of a fake news onslaught due to your own poorly initiated publicity, or a decades-old pedophile ring operating in the power-hoarding shadows of Washington, D.C. is about to be opened from your front door. John Bound for INFOWARS.com.
Well, as people are trying to get away for Thanksgiving, taking planes, trains, and automobiles, let's take a look at this massive traffic jam in L.A. and what it tells us about the state of our infrastructure and where we're headed. The Telegraph, the United Kingdom, asks, is this the world's worst traffic jam, this Thanksgiving gridlock? And as you look at the pictures that they've got here, there's they tweet out, there's a tweet from ABC 7 Eyewitness News where they took a helicopter cam of the footage there. And basically, as Joe Jennings pointed out, L.A. has turned into a red state as we see the motorists with the blues. That's the 405 in California. That's the only way you can get to the airport. Now, as you look at this massive traffic jam going both ways, you got to ask yourself, is this a failed plan, or have we got urban planners who are planning to fail? What could they do about that? We have urban planners who say, we can't widen the roads. It's urban sprawl as it is. We're turning all of our cities into just a massive concrete jungle for people. We've got the people on Twitter saying it looks like they're doing the mannequin challenge. Others saying maybe they're decorating the 405 with Christmas tree lights. Another one says it's called the 405 for a reason. It takes 4 or 5 hours to get anywhere. And why is that? Why couldn't we do something about that? And of course, we could do something about it. Think about cities. As cities got more heavily concentrated and compacted, what did they do? Did they keep building small buildings and widening the footprint of the cities in a more and more sprawl? They kind of did that in L.A., but in most cities, they start to build skyscrapers. And we've seen that in some other cities, like in Austin here. We've got an addition to a part of the interstate here where they just added another layer of the interstate over the existing roadbed. Things like that could be done if they wanted to help us with the traffic situation, but they don't. And I think a very clear indicator of this was an editorial that was written back in September by the CEO of Lyft. This is a guy who, by profession, was an urban planner. This is a guy who loves cities. He sees cities as utopia. He sees cars as the problems with cities. And you have to understand, when you go back and think about our history in this last 100 years or so, the history of the car, I think he got it exactly opposite. I think cities are the problem. Cities have always been the problem. Thomas Jefferson said, cities are a threat to the health, the wealth, and the liberty of man. Why are they a threat to the liberty of man? Because it's not just the traffic concentration of cars. It's the concentration of people into one area. And that's what the urban planners want. That's what the politicians want. That's what the people who run these services like Lyft and Uber, the car companies want that. They want you to be concentrated in one area. And we should start thinking about the concentration of control that gives them over our lives. We should start thinking about the fact that as they plot to take away private car ownership, they're also plotting to turn us into renters. Not only renters of real estate, but renters even of our transportation, where they will own the roads, they will own the cars, and we will have to rent everything from them. We've had many examples. We had the CEO of Mercedes saying, I'm concerned about the future because I'm concerned that human drivers are going to bully the robot cars, not the other way around, see? And what that tells you is the underlying understanding that they have talked about, that we cannot have a coexistence of human drivers with robot cars. You will have one or the other. It won't be the sort of thing where, oh, I'd like to just sit here on my daily commute and do this. No, they're going to gradually, and the only question is to what degree they will attempt to put human drivers out of the business and take over all the cars because they want to own everything. And he says, as he bemoans this, he says, we have a country that was built for cars. It's like, no, cars provided us a way to escape the concentration of the cities. That's why people took so eagerly to the suburbs. And the car was the instrument to get you out of there. But he goes on to say in this, he says, by 2025, private car ownership will all but end in major U.S. cities. Everything is going to be safer, right? They tell you that. Are we safer? Look at the many accidents that we've had with trains, with commuter trains, just in the last couple of years. These are very simple problems to solve compared to having robot cars, even if there are no human drivers on the road. We have a situation with trains where you've got one vehicle that's on the track. All they have to do is make sure there's nothing in front of it and that it stops on time. They can't even do that. Or think about airplanes. Are you going to have a wonderful life where you don't have any traffic? Those people who are headed to the airport, once they get to the airport, they've got a massive jam there. Now, the problem is concentration. Cars, if urban planners wanted to do it, would be a way for us to lessen concentration, but they want control over your lives.
Well, in our final segment tonight, we're going to be talking about the southern border. We have an in-house resident expert, Joe Biggs, reporter for INFOWARS, that has been to the southern border, and we have some really troubling information for you. It turns out not only are people exploiting our border coming across illegally, but it looks like we have an additional threat, a 9/11 mastermind, an Al-Qaeda mastermind. He favors our immigration open border policy. Big surprise there, Joe. I know you have some more information regarding this, a piece that came out in the Washington Examiner. Let us know what you found.
Well, there's a guy named James Mitchell. He was a CIA contractor who worked out at Guantanamo Bay and actually dealt with a lot of these high-level, high-tier individuals who really have done some bad things and will continue to do bad things. And basically what this book is that he has written, James Mitchell, breaks down how enhanced interrogations have worked. And this is coming from the mouths of actual individuals who've been held there for years saying, hey, you know, this stuff, it actually works. Like, you know, I normally wouldn't have said half the things I've done, and it's led to, you know, a lot of things being stopped. It says the jailed architect of 9/11 revealed that Al-Qaeda's plan to kill the United States was not through military attacks, but by immigration and outbreeding non-Muslims who would use a legal system to install Sharia law, according to a blockbuster new book. Now, we've talked about this time and time again, how the borders are completely and totally wide open. Just the other day, Barack Obama suspended drone use at the borders, and we'll get to that part. But I've been out on the border numerous times. We already have a wall in some areas, and some areas we don't. Some areas, the wall consists of merely just wooden posts with maybe a strand of barbed wire that really is nothing, and it's so easily to penetrate and to get through.
Joe, what does that say to you that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, you know, a known terrorist, he's saying, you know, look, our weak-kneed politicians, they're going to come after waterboarding, and nobody likes the thought of waterboarding. You know, it's disgusting and despicable. They're doing this to people that have, you know, not so veiled threats against the U.S. that are involved in terrorist activities that want to see our country destroyed. And oh, by the way, our southern border, they see that as a prime opportunity. Just come on through because it's wide open. Meanwhile, Trump is called a racist and a bigot. He's not compassionate because he wants to close the border and secure law and order, which we haven't had for 8 years now because of our current president. We have terrorists saying, look, take advantage of the border. It's wide open. Take advantage of their immigration policies. We need to defeat the U.S. Here's a way to do it. We've covered this on INFOWARS time and again, where we did a radio spot about this 2 months ago, where we talked about how terrorists across the world are saying, look, there's a prime opportunity here. You can go right up through Central America, across the southern border into the U.S. You're going to go largely undetected. We've had that S2 route. Border agents were actually told to stand down as of October 1st. They're not even patrolling it anymore. That's a known route for smugglers. I know you brought us another article coming out of Breitbart, Texas. Breitbart, Texas leaders demand restart for aerial border surveillance. You touched on this a second ago, the drone aspect. The president has canceled the drones on the border. We don't want anybody looking at that border. Why do you think he's so anti-American?
I don't know. I mean, you can clearly see that the stuff works. You know, like I've said time and time again, I was in the border in Arizona and I spent some time out there. It's an area called Hereford. And there is a big wall in that one area, but there's many areas where it breaks and it's very easy to get across. Now, just on the other side, Mexico are cartel houses and things like that can be seen from this guy, Glenn Spencer's backyard. And he has this system that he's created where he uses seismic readers that go in the ground. And whenever someone walks and gets close to the border, it actually sets off these autonomous drones and then gives real-time footage back to his command center. And then he can call Border Patrol and police and say, hey, man, there's drugs coming across. There's human smuggling. There's terrorists. They're armed. They're not armed. And it works. It's something that's very effective. And that's why it's important to read this stuff, because I'm going to give you some more quotes from this guy. It says, the book that's set for release next Tuesday from Crown Forum show that Muslim terror groups had a much bigger plan to crush America than just through attacks like 9/11. Instead, the plan is to fill the country with like-minded Muslims through the country's easy immigration laws and by having babies, and then using the U.S. legal and welfare system to turn the country into a system like Iran. Now, the terrorist, he said the terror attacks were good, but the practical way to defeat America was through immigration and by outbreeding non-Muslims. He said jihadi-minded brothers would immigrate into the U.S., taking advantage of the welfare system to support themselves while they spread their jihadi message. They will wrap themselves in America's rights and laws for protection, ratchet up acceptance of Sharia law, and then, only when they are strong enough, rise up and violently impose Sharia from within. He said the brothers would relentlessly continue their attacks, and the American people would eventually become so tired, so frightened, and so weary of war that they would just want it to end. And eventually, America will expose her neck for us to slaughter. And these are the kind of people that we have to worry about. That's why when we talked about the Paris attacks, when I went out to Paris with Michael Zimmerman and I went into Belgium, the way that these guys were getting across over in Europe were these open borders, and they use it, and they use this refugee crisis as a way to be able to skate in and slip in through the cracks and then go out and carry these attacks. You know, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And we've seen how wide open borders can lead to death, how it can lead to chaos, how it can lead to your entire civilization collapsing. And that's what's happening over in Europe. So why would we not sit here? Why would we not look at that and learn from that and go, you know what? Let's not make that mistake. Let's secure the borders. Let's vet who's coming across.
Not only that, but tackling this issue where we have non-citizens taking advantage of our welfare state. And this is something that we've talked about here on INFOWARS. Alex has covered it in depth. I know that you have a heart for this issue as well, because we don't want to see our country fall. You know, we like our values. We like our American system. We like our principles. We like being able to have free speech in this nation. We don't want Sharia law imposed on our people here. And the fact that you have an open leader saying this is how we're going to defeat them and conquer them. We're just going to make sure that all of these non-citizens are going to secure rights, the same rights that citizens have, and they're going to begin mass breeding. We're going to outbreed a population. Doesn't that alarm you? It's like, what? What?
I mean, the guy, Khalid Muhammad, smiled and said the media, either on purpose or without realizing it, would promote Islam's cause and champion tearing down the measures put in place to protect the American people after 9/11. He said the media would promote al-Qaeda's cause by framing the war against Islam, his characterization, not mine, and that's the guy who wrote the book, as morally wrong. impossible to win, and fraught with unacceptable losses. He said the media's response was one of Allah's gifts, one of the ways Allah preordained for Americans to set aside those things which kept us safe and prevented attacks in the immediate aftermath of 9/11. So here he is bragging. He knows that we're going to be empathetic. We have these big hearts. We're going to go like, oh my God, these poor immigrants.
Soros called the Catholics useful idiots when it comes to this because of their compassion. That's a very known thing.
Well, these are smart people. They understand. They don't just live in caves like a lot of people think. They're not just sitting out there, milking goats and screaming Allah Akbar all day. Like these guys, no combat, no war. They are masters of their trade, and that is manipulating people. If you go to places like Iraq and Afghanistan, it's part of their culture to lie to non-believers. It is okay to lie to non-believers, so they will tell you whatever it is you want to hear just so they can, at the end, get their way and have it.
Look, this is not an assault for me on Muslims at all. This is an assault on Sharia law being implemented in this country. And we have a playbook by this author if this is how this is going to work here. And for people to just idly sit by, the fact that they call the mainstream media one of Allah's greatest gifts to them. We've got a mainstream media in this country that lies to us, that bullies us, that wants us to believe that if we speak out that, we're hateful, racist bigots. That simply isn't the case. And the greatest thing that they've done to the American people is to silence them and to push them into a corner. Don't you just love that Donald Trump pulled in all of these TV networks and these big personalities that are larger than life and basically walloped all of them in the face saying, how dare you lie? It is time to dethrone these people, to defang them because of what they've done to our society. They're aiding people who want to destroy us. If that is not crystal clear by now, we haven't done our jobs, frankly.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. I mean, it's all right here. I mean, here you have it from a guy who's led people, a guy who's a known terrorist, and he's saying that he's going to use our weaknesses completely and totally against us. He's going to do everything he can to train his brothers to exploit our open borders, to tug at our heartstrings, and know that we're going to have these social justice warriors who are going to stand up and fight for them, and in the end, be the death of them.
Exactly. Well, you know what? We could talk about this all day long. It's of critical importance to you. Check out this segment. It'll be up on YouTube soon. That's going to do it for us for tonight. Also, be sure, tune into InfoWars Nightly News on Monday. David Knight will be hosting. We have a happy Thanksgiving for you. Happy Thanksgiving for our audience. We love you. Stay strong. You are the resistance.